My name is Kathleen Creamer. I'm a staff attorney at Community Legal Services in Philadelphia. So I'm going to start today with the first myth about children of incarcerated parents, and that myth is one of the most pernicious myths that we have, which is that children of incarcerated parents are 6 times more likely than their peers to end up incarcerated themselves. This is unfortunately a myth that was never substantiated by research. In fact, there is no research to support this proposition. And yet, unfortunately for these children, this myth has been repeated throughout the media over and over again. The reason that this myth is so damaging to children is that it creates sort of this idea of a prophecy for these children, that they are destined to end up incarcerated themselves. When the reality is we know that children of incarcerated parents, for the most part, do okay. They are at risk for certain negative outcomes, and we need to be aware of those. So what research has shown is that they are at risk for increased behavioral problems. They are at risk, slightly more at risk for juvenile delinquency. But for the most part, when we see these kids have stable caregiving relationships and ongoing contact with the parent, these kids do just fine. So it's really important that we recognize that children of incarcerated parents are children of incredible promise, that we need to invest in these children and not assume that they are destined to repeat the mistakes of their parents.
He works so hard to raise us, and he wants us to be someone in life. He doesn't want us to go through the same thing he went through, and that's what we're here for still, because we are trying to finish school. We are trying to get a career for him, just for him, and well, my mom too, but mainly because of him.
The next myth that we hear a lot is that incarcerated parents didn't play an important role in their children's lives, that these children don't know these parents, that these parents aren't important to these kids. And that myth is really belied by the research that we do have about children of incarcerated parents. The fact is that most kids of incarcerated parents actually lived with their incarcerated parent prior to incarceration. That is especially true in the case of moms. So we know that around 64% of moms who are in jail right now lived with and were the primary caregiver for their child prior to their incarceration. That number for dads is in the upper 40s. So we know that for most of these kids, they had a very strong and even a custodial relationship with their incarcerated parent prior to incarceration. Most children of incarcerated parents love their parents, have a strong relationship with their parents, and have a strong desire to maintain their relationship with their parents.
My relationship with my dad has always been great. I look up to him. He has been such a model for me because he had to start working at the age of 13, and my parents just teaching us, and him especially, to raise a family with such hard work. My dad has always been such a great father to us. Well, not only to me, but to my brother and sister.
Yeah, I look up to him too, because he will always used to help me. And with stuff I needed, stuff with sports or anything, he will always be there. And now that I didn't see him for that long, and still, I kind of miss all those things.
Another myth that we hear a lot is that visiting a parent at jail is harmful to a child. The reality is that for most kids, visitation is actually one of the best things that we can do for them. Research has shown time and time again that children experience a number of recurrent and common emotions when they lose a parent to incarceration. Every loss of a parent to incarceration is a trauma for a child. And what we see for those children is feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety, depression. And one of the best ways that we can address that is to really allow that child to see and spend time with their incarcerated parent. What research has showed us is that for children of incarcerated parents, there are 2 really strong predictors of how well they do when their parent gets incarcerated. One of those predictors is, does that child have a strong, stable, nurturing, custodial environment during their parent's incarceration? And then the other predictor is, did that child get a chance to maintain and nurture their relationship with their incarcerated parent? For kids who get to see their parent and who get to stay in a nurturing and stable home environment, The results are very positive.
What do you want people to know about what it was like to visit your mom in jail, and why is it important?
It was important to me because I love my mom, and it was just exciting for me.
While my mom was incarcerated, our relationship actually got a lot better. We were talking more, and it was a lot easier for me to be comfortable with her being my mom.
It was important to me to visit with my mom because I needed her. I wanted to see her. I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to be able to ask her questions. I wanted to be able to help her help me through life.
A myth that's out there is that incarcerated parents are dangerous parents and that they are dangerous to their children. The reality is that most children of incarcerated parents have parents who have committed nonviolent offenses. That is particularly true if the mother is incarcerated. Women are not as likely to have committed violent offenses. They're more likely to be incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. But even for dads, about half of dads who are incarcerated committed nonviolent offenses. So we know by and large, parents who are incarcerated not because they were violent or dangerous, but because they were incarcerated for some sort of nonviolent offense. And the number gets even smaller when we consider parents who are incarcerated for danger to their children. So even among parents who are incarcerated for violent offenses, very, very few of those parents are incarcerated for offenses that involve children. So it's an extremely small number of parents who ever have been incarcerated for harming a child. And it's also a small number of parents who are incarcerated for any kind of violent offense. The reality is that most parents who are incarcerated are not violent people. They are not dangerous to their children. Another myth is that incarcerated parents can't play an important role in their children's lives during their incarceration. In fact, we've seen a number of cases where parents have been able to successfully partner with the caregiver and really be a valuable co-parent to that caregiver on the outside. So we know that when parents are incarcerated, they don't lose their right to participate in decision-making about their child and can be really important and vital players in making medical decisions, therapeutic decisions, educational decisions for their child. They can take an active role in finding out how their child is doing and supporting the caregiver and providing whatever services this child needs.
My mom was asked where she wanted me to be placed and if my current placement was okay with her, and if she had anything to say about my placement and the conditions I was in.
One of our most important takeaways is that each child and parent has a unique story. It's important to consider each family individual and really consider the strengths that each parent who's incarcerated can bring to this family. Another takeaway is that children of incarcerated parents are children of great promise. These children have the ability to achieve amazing things, and we need to support them and not reinforce the myth that they're likely to end up in prison themselves. Another takeaway is that children of incarcerated parents need to be connected to their parents. Connecting a child to their incarcerated parents is one of the best ways we have to address the trauma that they experience from the loss of their parent. It is possible to co-parent from jail. Incarcerated parents have a lot to offer their child and to the child's family. It's important to involve the parent and see better outcomes for both children and parents when we bring them to the table.